Hi, I'm Richard Ashworth. I'm here to talk to you about hexagram number 57 from the Book of Changes, the Yi or I Ching, Sun, the gentle, wind over wind. And the purpose of these ramblings is firstly to offer some suggestions as to what it might mean if you have thrown this hexagram today. Second reason is to identify the timeless wisdom of the Book of Changes and kind of clarified if I can do that. And thirdly, it's to give some indication of how the hexagrams of the Book of Changes reflect the situation at any given time. And these hexagrams are actually chosen as the specific hexagrams for a particular month. So this is for this month, which doesn't mean its meaning is dissipated after now, but it is specifically about the month of the wood snake. I mean metal snake. So Sun the gentle. I love the description in the Book of Changes of Sun. Gentle and thorough, but ultimately adamant. Gentle and thorough, but ultimately adamant. The structure is wind over wind. It'd be a good idea for you to have a copy of the hexagram in front of you. It will be in the Book of Changes, hexagram 57. You might want to get that in front of you before continuing listening. Wind over wind, very, very, very much, very emphatic gentleness. But it has a hard edge, as these hexagrams do. The title is kind of misleading as to the lessons it's putting across. And the central lesson is the thin line between making decisions, being a pushover, being adamant at the wrong times, sticking to decisions that are not smart, and so on and so forth. So we'll go through the lines one by one. The balance is there are 2 yin lines and 4 yang. So the structure of it is wind over wind, yin, yang, one over the other. There is no what is called correspondence. So those yin and yang lines fall in kind of awkward places. So the cooperation between the parts of the hexagram, if you will, are not easy. The coupling, however, where the lines that are next to each other work together, there is quite a lot of that, more than in most. There are 3 pairings: the first and the second line, the fourth and the fifth, and the fifth and the sixth. Meaning it's kind of cliquey, meaning there is this implication of requiring agreement, there's this implication of requiring endorsement, that kind of thing, of arriving at conclusions for reasons other than them being the right decision. The host or ruler is the 5th line. The host or ruler is usually the best line, if you like, or the most typical. It is central, inflexible, and not correct, which makes it quite a troublesome line, as we will explore as we look at it. The Chinese image, the ideograph, is of 2 snakes, possibly like a caduceus, a healing image, 2 snakes curled together. You see often outside doctors' surgeries. And its appropriate time is the 8th month. So, and its nuclear is number 38, Gui, the diverse, fire over lake. So diverse, perverse. It's suggesting that this situation came from kind of from a whim, perhaps, where a decision that was not well taken needed examination, something of that sort, maybe. Anyway, what Confucius had to say about it is that equilibrium is the great basis of human activity. Harmony is the universal path for all to pursue. And the line that King Wen, the text that King Wen gave for the whole hexagram, which between you and me is the only part of the hexagram text that I trust implicitly. He said, small offerings, advantageous to have a place to go, advantageous to see the great man. So what he's suggesting is you need to make up your mind, and you may need advice, which of itself is pretty good advice. So hexagram 57, the gentle. Let me give you some ideas. Gentleness from strength is not to be confused with weakness. the yielding yin lines lie humbly under the two yang lines. So we have yin, yang, yang, as if that is the place of the yin. And some of you yin people out there, about half the population, might contest that. It is pure wind, tireless, unrelenting, pure movement. I mean, it's an illustration of why the wind is rendered as yin wood in feng shui, because wood is movement. We know that a plant is alive because it's growing, because it's constantly moving. That's what wood is. And so wind is simply pure movement. As wood, it slowly penetrates the ground, ceaselessly working at the puzzles of life, but always gentle, yielding, compliant, adaptable. It is not feng, that is in feng shui, not a tempest or the violent wind of acupuncture. Do not confuse it with that. My teacher, Peter Firebrace, I remember making it very clear we're not talking about what is often referred to as wind in acupuncture. Both the middle lines are firm. The lines of the component trigrams, i.e. the second and fifth lines, both firm. So this hexagram is about the balance between humility and confidence, you might say. And now we're going to look at the text of each line. The first line, now advancing, now retreating, the firmness of the warrior is an advantage. So it means it's about not making up your mind. It's flexible, it's incorrect, it's not central. So it's kind of all over the place. It has no correspondence with the fourth line. So some hexagrams, the first line, which represents the people, represents the audience, if you like, may be able to get some help or advice or guidance from someone higher up the food chain. Not in this case. It's all over the place. It's underconfident, and it is the consequence of too much humility. So one of the pitfalls in making decisions is not to be too humble. You need to make up your mind. Firmness is required. And this line will change. And if you have drawn this hexagram with this changing line, the change is to Shao Chu, hexagram 9, little accumulation, wind over heaven, the lesser ducks in a row. It suggests that after preparation, great or small, you may need to seize the day. But some constraint causes delay, and it may be that you're ducking the greater challenge, so you do have to make up your mind. The second line is a funny one, the wind present under the bed, and there are all sorts of implications of this. What the hell is the wind doing under the bed? What are you doing under the bed? And it may mean all sorts of things. Employ many historians, priests, magicians, good fortune, no error. So this is about receiving advice. Consult the authority, but don't be subservient. What D.H. Lawrence said was to trust the tale, not the teller. We need to be able to trust what is being said without particularly worshipping the person that the advice came from. So the advice is you can't do this alone, you must cooperate. And if you get this line, this changing line today, the second change is to wind over mountain, that's Jian, hexagram 53, gradual progress, which speaks of letting go of control, patience, and success at length. Gradual progress is one of the images of the little tree on the mountain that puts down a root, then maybe grows a branch, puts down another root, maybe grows a leaf, put down another root, then maybe grows a bloom, but make sure it is very, very deeply embedded before it makes decisions. You might say this is about being quite certain of your ground before you make a decision. It is incorrect, firm, and central. So again, it's one where you must take advice, you must listen to it, but listen to it for the right reasons. Listen to the advice, not the advisor, if that makes sense. 9 at the third, repeated compliance, regret. Well, this is about not being responsible for a decision. It is correct, it is firm, and it's not central, so it's hard to move. It represents traditionally a poseur, false humility, someone who's not entitled to make a decision, someone whose decisions may be slavish, someone who is in such rebellion to the authority that he makes silly decisions and sticks with them, and in a sense becomes slavish because he feels so resentful about others making decisions, perhaps. willful, irresponsible, shameful. Some of these are the words being used. Giving up agency. Ralph Waldo Emerson said that a foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds. If you have this line, it changes to hexagram 59, dispersal, wind over water, which for me is a beautiful image, just peaceful dispersal, nothing to worry about. And it may be this is saying, if you don't make a good decision, everything falls apart. And if you don't make a decision at all, it may be even worse. The fourth line, regrets vanish. In the field, he captures 3 kinds of game. This is about the fact that this is a Chinese tradition that when a hunt is on, the way that the game has been dispatched indicates whether it can be a sacrifice, whether it can be eaten, whether it has to be stored, those kinds of things. And it suggests that it's correct, but it's not firm, it's not central. It suggests that the decision-making authority is earned. So if you've thrown this line today, the change is to mountain over heaven, goo, breaking ranks, hexagram 44. And breaking ranks, this is the one that the woman is too strong, do not marry this woman. I'm not sure what a woman being too strong might be, and I'm not sure that, what did Dorothy Parker say? A woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle. This is suggesting breaking ranks perhaps is not such a bad idea. Not necessarily following orthodoxy is what I would make of it. And it is firm, and it's in service to the yin line, which is a gentle ruler at the 5th. But this fifth line, which we're coming to now, is problematic. Firmness brings good fortune, regrets vanish, Hui Wang. Nothing is disadvantageous, nothing good at first, but later good. It is central, it is correct, it is firm, it is hard to move, but it may be unwise firmness. So if you've thrown this today, you may be in a position you don't want to back off from. Human beings want to be right for the most part. And politicians particularly, generals, though, leaders, don't like to be wrong. And when they are wrong, they are as likely to double down, much more likely to double down than admit it. And this may be this kind of leader. The fact that it is yin could be interpreted as weak, but compliant and cooperative is also a meaning here. But the person here may make a decision that is too strong without consideration. So this whole hexagram is about remaining flexible, making good decisions, not about being right, not about not backing down. You're not John Bon Jovi, or maybe you are. Know your own strength and the impact of your words. All's well that ends well. 3 days of deliberation before acting and 3 after. Now this may be very specific to you. You may have a decision to make where you need to think very hard before you take it, and you also need to be open to changing it after you have taken it. And obviously being consistent with the rest of the lines, consult, share, listen, clear the way. The 5th change is to mountain over wind. So this line would change to mountain over wind. Goo, hexagram 18, poison. Deadly insects in a bottle. What is going on in hexagram 18 is this was a traditional Chinese thing that all the most poisonous insects, but I think poisonable is a word, all the most poisonous insects would be put into a bottle together and just be left to kind of fight it out. And then the resultant mush would be liquidized and then drunk as a cure for something. I think it probably killed a few people too. It doesn't sound like a great idea. Maybe it was a punishment too. But the price of a right decision might be poison, might be deadly insects in a bottle, it might be single combat or mayhem. But the point is, the right decision might have that price tag, and the wrong decision might do. But the issue is making the right decision. So that's what line 5 might be for you. The last line, the top line, usually about being above it, about ideology, about religion, about heaven, about spirituality. And it's referring to being under the bed again. Compliance under the bed, loses his gear and axe. Now these may be meaningful. This may be symbols of virility and competence, for instance. You know, the term axe feels to me a bit like how people feel about, how I feel about my Lopan. You know, it's mine. I mean, less than a dozen people have ever touched my Lopan, and I've had it 25 years. The way you might feel about a guitar or even a car. So we might get attached to a decision, maybe, and our self-respect might be related to it. And this is firm and incorrect and not central. And it's above it all. It's not listening, perhaps. There is the danger of very poor judgment, lazy, servile, passive, macho stuff, the need to be right as opposed to getting it right. There's a risk of losing everything. There's a risk of following religious or political rules for no good reason other than that they are rules. Correct placing ensures correct outcome, would be a feng shui way of looking at it. It is the opposite of autocracy we're looking for here. We're looking for good decisions made having taken whatever advice is appropriate. That is the theme, I think, of the whole hexagram. Not doing it by yourself and insisting that you're right when you know you're not, nor listening to everybody and becoming a straw in the wind. This sixth change, if you've thrown it again today, is to water over wind, Jing, hexagram 48, the well, which concerns access to resources. It's less about the well than it is about how you get water out of it, about resources, about being able to get to what you need to do, about looking after resources, preserving your equipment, and so on. As John Blofeld says, one of my favorite books of changes, John Blofeld, little read, I think, compared with the others. In carrying out the will of heaven, the utmost submissiveness is required. And the question to ask is, what situation or question in your life and or the world might be being addressed by this hexagram, and what response are you receiving? Pay attention, perhaps. Line by line, I draw these things up in a different way because I draw attention to how in the month we're talking about, which is actually June 2025 at the moment, where the changing line and the line itself may be opposite in relation to what's going on in the world, politically or otherwise. And there's plenty of here that is about silly, strong men making damn silly decisions for all sorts of selfish or stupid reasons. And that is consistently saying don't. Line 4 is interesting. It's actually at the moment that I'm making this recording. Line 4 is correct, not firm, not central. It talks about a successful mission and possibly a controversial one, as the text suggested, about the variety of impact, and it speaks of an enforcer. And FYI, I wrote these lines some weeks ago, and at this moment, if you want to pay attention to that, which is only a small part of what I'm doing here, very, very relevant. And my purpose is to keep looking at these hexagrams with a view to getting better and better purchase on when it's telling us exactly what's going on, and sometimes exactly what to do about it. So line 4 will be one to have a look at relative to the present day. And finally, I'm going to quote one of my other favorite scholars of the Book of Changes, the late Alfred Huang, who wrote possibly the best Book of Changes that's easy to get hold of. His, what's it called? Complete I Ching. He said, equilibrium is the potential before it has been released, and harmony is the result of the proper way of releasing the potential. And I think I'll let him have the last word. These ramblings come out of classes I hold on the first Wednesday, usually the first Wednesday of every month. I'm going through every hexagram, hexagram by hexagram, using the hexagram relevant to the month in which I'm talking. And so I've got about 7 years work, of which we've done rather less than 2 so far. But do join us if you get in contact with Sheila. She will tell you how you might join us. Otherwise, these are always on my YouTube channel. Okay, thanks for listening if you have. See you next time. Bye-bye.